Welcome to Private Corporate Counsel Podcast. Private Corporate Counsel is a law firm in Orlando, Florida, focusing on providing legal services to small and medium-sized businesses. And the firm also includes consultants and mediators, offering a holistic approach to helping businesses grow and develop. Today, we have the pleasure of talking to Mike Sloan today. Mike, great to meet you. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for coming in and sharing your wisdom with us. I know that you're in the field of helping businesses and business owners with financial issues. And that's an important part of the 7 major life cycles of entrepreneurs. In my work with entrepreneurs, I've spent a lot of time looking at the different aspects of their lives, and I've found that breaking it down into 7 categories is probably one of the best ways for me to organize it. I look at their personal life cycle, their relationship life cycle, their family life cycle, their professional life cycle, their work or job life cycle, their financial life cycle, and then their business life cycle. A lot of times they expect me to start with their business life cycle, but it's the one that I usually speak less about at the beginning of the process and more about at the end of the process. And of course, the financial life cycle is important as well. So I appreciate you coming in and spending some time with us to help provide more information to our audience, who are primarily small and medium-sized businesses, about the financial life cycle and the specific issues relative thereto. But before we jump into that, tell us a little about yourself.
I grew up in South Florida. As a young boy and young man, my aspirations after serving in the military were to become a firefighter paramedic. I achieved that, worked for the city of Hialeah as a firefighter paramedic, started a side business doing investments in insurance. And in 1993, I was at an event where I was approached by a headhunter for American Express. And he handed me a card and said, if you ever consider leaving the fire service and jumping into financial planning full-time, we'd love to interview you. At that moment, I was like, nah, I'll never cease being a firefighter. It's a dream job. I love it. 6 months later, after a bad shift at the station, being up all night and just exhausted, I said to myself, I don't want to do this for the next 20 years. I called the headhunter. And he had me come in and interview and said, we'd like to bring you on board. There's another test that you have to pass before you can officially join us. We'll sponsor you for it. To make a long story short, I went, took the study course, passed the exam, and got hired by American Express. Worked with them for about a year and realized that there were some things in their corporate beliefs that I didn't agree with. And so I went out and opened up my own shingle and hung it out there as an independent financial advisor. Over time, my wanderlust hit me hard. I ended up moving out west to Portland, Oregon, and met a gentleman out there who has mentored me now for over 20 years. He's one of the premier experts in the life insurance industry in the United States. Took me under his wing and asked me an important question that changed my life. He says, would you like to learn to work with the wealthy and business owners? And I said, love to, but I wouldn't even know where to begin. Never been exposed to that market. And he said, I'll teach you. So that changed my life. I was on a quest to learn and to continue to learn how to serve high net worth clients and business owners. Over time, I realized that it's a team effort to truly serve somebody with significant wealth or a business owner with complex needs. There is no single advisor that has all the knowledge, all the skills, all the products to serve that level of wealth or complexity in business. And you truly do need a team. So I'm part of what's called a virtual family office, which is just that. We have assembled a team of financial experts across all disciplines, of which, I'm proud to have access to you and be able to, have you join that and offer service to our clients. But I'm always looking for outside professionals that can bring value and expertise to our team. I look for professionals that are willing to collaborate with other professionals. I look for knowledge. I look for core beliefs that together, working for the client's best interest, we can secure a better outcome than any one of us can by ourselves.
So focusing on your life cycles, you told us a little bit about your personal life and now your professional life cycle. To become proficient in your job, in your profession, and doing what you're doing, it seems like the first step that you took was to be ignited somehow, to have someone who turned that light on or that switch on within you. And help you realize your passion for helping people and specifically helping them in the field of financial security and growth and development. And then you went through this process of an apprenticeship, if you will, or a mentorship, and learned as much as you can. And then sometime during that process or towards the tail end of that process, you got to the point where your knowledge base was so high, where your abilities were so strong, your experience was substantial, that you started to be able to have some fluidity in the profession, and feel a degree of competence and confidence and a sense of I've arrived at prime within my profession.
Yes, sir.
And now that you're there in prime in that profession, you as you've done for a while, you're embarking on helping others to achieve prime in their financial life cycle. So tell me, do you have some stories, just a few stories of business owners, businesses, or even professionals that you've met over the years, and you've seen some very interesting scenarios and heard some very interesting stories, which led you to the point of believing, wow, these people really need my service?
In 2005, I moved to Georgia with my family. And after arriving, getting settled into our new house, I took my vehicle to get an oil change. And I didn't know it at the time, but the gentleman that was changing my oil was the owner of the company. And struck up a conversation with him. And, he said, "What brought you to Georgia?" So I told him a little bit about my business. And he was like, "We need to talk." And I was excited, especially as I learned more about the size of his business and the complexities in his business. He was a hard worker, started his business from scratch at that time, 25 years before I met him, had grown a thriving business, but had done no planning. He had no will, no estate plan of any kind. All of his money was tied up in his business. And when we first started talking about repositioning some of his profits from the business into a vehicle outside of the business, he strongly resisted. He says, I get a 30% return on every dollar I reinvest in my business. You can't match that. But I made one comment to him. I said, that 30% continues until it stops. What happens then? And it took a while for that to sink in. And we had some disputes, heated conversations about the need for some outside planning. We built a very good friendship, so I could speak very candidly with him. And I said, it's critically important for your financial future that you have taken some of these profits and deployed them outside of the business. So they're not exposed to the risk of the business. They're not exposed to the stock market. They're safe money, just in case. Finally, one day he calls me and he says, "I'm ready to listen." He says, "Can you spend an afternoon with me?" And I said, "Sure, I'll schedule it." And so we agreed to meet at one of the shops. I got there, he was late. He showed up about a half hour late, and I was like, "Oh crap, I forgot we were supposed to meet." And he said, "Can you spend the afternoon riding around with me? I've got some errands to run, but can you, spend the afternoon and, just give us a chance to talk?" So I did. And mainly I listened. I listened to what his goals and concerns were. I helped fill in the gaps, provided some ideas on how he could make that happen.
So with him in particular, the issue was more of an emotional or a mental block. and he thought that the business was going to be there forever, and he really needed to focus on just the business, and the business was doing so great. He was not looking further enough ahead.
Correct.
Yeah. And with him in particular, you thought, I can help this guy.
Yeah.
And I think I can, based on my experience, based on my knowledge, based on my skills, based on my relationships, I think I can bring some great value to this guy. So where do you think in his personal financial life cycle he was at that time?
He was in his peak earning years.
So in his earning years, in terms of his earning capacity, he was in prime. But what about his future? What about planning and having financial stability? Where was he?
He was just beginning to hear my message and recognize that what I had said was true, and emotionally reached the point where he was willing to to stop reinvesting so much money in the business, but redirect some of those profits outside of the business.
So he was at a place where, for me, financial prime is pretty straightforward. You have 3 buckets. One bucket is to cover your monthly expenses as they are. The other one is what I call your fun bucket. And the other one is your savings bucket. And so for me, financial prime is if your savings bucket has enough in it that the income earned by that savings bucket can cover your monthly expenses in your fund bucket and still have some more money left over to reinvest in your fund bucket and in your savings bucket, and that grows. So in his instance, he only had everything in the business, and that was covering the monthly expenses for the business. That was spinning off money for him, and it was growing just based on the growth of the development of the business. But it wasn't passive; it was all active.
Correct.
And because it was not passive, he was not necessarily in prime in his financial life cycle, and
Correct.
he had to get a private financial life cycle.
Correct.
And that's what you saw.
Correct. We engaged in an aggressive savings program. He gave me a 10-year time frame to work with, and he said, "Help me design a program that 10 years from now, regardless of what happens with the business, I can retire and afford the lifestyle that I want." And he made a commitment to do it and did it. He sold his business very unexpectedly. He had a private equity company walk in the door and say, "We want to buy you." They made him an offer, and there was really not much negotiating. But he was also going through a divorce at the time.
Yes.
The money that we had put aside over the intervening 5 or 7 years was significant and helps now, in addition to the proceeds from the business, supports his lifestyle.
Yeah. And of course, he had to split that with his wife. And so not only are we thinking about his financial life cycle, but his now ex-wife's financial life cycle as well.
Correct.
And now that, and based on what you're doing, there was sufficient amount left for them both to do that.
Correct.
And that's fantastic. So now, what about professionals? Have you worked with professionals and had an opportunity to observe how they travel through their financial life cycle and some of the issues that they bump into?
It's interesting. Most of my clients are blue-collar business owners. I don't have many professionals. So most of my clients have, none of the traditional retirement savings vehicles that a white-collar professional would have in their business. So most business owners are much like the client I just described. They see their business as their exclusive means of preparing for their retirement. And it leaves them at risk, significant risk. And most of them don't want to address it. They've been led to believe that, their business will sell for what they want it to sell for when they retire. And it's hard to get through that to somebody and say, even though your business is your number one asset, it can't be your only asset. So you do need to develop alternative methods of saving for your retirement, accumulating wealth outside of the business.
So when we're dealing with these businesses, Are there any things that you see in common that are trends among these businesses, other than these entrepreneurs thinking the business is the only asset that I need, and I need to build that as much as possible, and that will be that will be the savior for me in my retirement years?
Yes, and it's amazing how similar most businesses are. They all start with a dream, and it can be one man, one woman has an idea, and they turn a hobby into a business. It could be two brothers who have a dream and take that and turn it into a business. What I'm finding with almost every small business owner that I talk to is they don't know what they don't know. Maybe they're good at turning wrenches and they can make a lot of money turning wrenches, but they don't seek counsel from either an attorney, financial advisor, or even their CPA to set up their business, to protect their business, to put the processes in place to grow their business. And, time after time, I've had people say, God, I wish I'd met you 20 years ago. Time after time, I've had people say, I ask, do you have a CPA doing your taxes? No, I do it myself. And I responded, the tax code is 72,000 pages long. Do you really believe that you understand all the intricacies, all the opportunities, all the roadblocks that are in that tax code that could affect your business? I'm trying to save a couple $1,000s. And, I try the best I can to explain to them the value of working with a professional and bringing in a team. They say, but I don't want to spend the money. I said, it's not about what you spend. It's about what they can save and help you protect your business against a variety of different risks. So really, the bottom line is in almost all small businesses is there's a lack of planning.
So one thing across all the businesses is this desire, number one, to just work in the business, and this hopium
exactly.
that the business is going to be the saving grace for them in their retirement years. Yeah. The other is that there's a sense that I can do it all myself, and I don't need anyone else to help me. Yeah. So what other issues do you see pop in with businesses at the small and medium-sized level stage?
There's an emerging trend, and as I mentioned earlier, I was at an event last night. The baby boomers are approaching retirement, and there's several million baby boomer-owned businesses in the United States. And most of those businesses haven't even begun to think about how to exit their business. What does that mean? What is that process? How do I determine value of my business? Will it support the lifestyle that I'm accustomed to? And a recent survey showed that I think it's less than 10% of businesses actually have a written succession plan. And yet it's inevitable. Every business is going to pass. It's either going to pass in a manner that you choose, or it's going to pass when you die to the IRS, family, at auction. We don't know.
Yeah, every business has a life cycle, and the trick is getting it into prime and then keeping it in prime as long as possible. And of course, the succession plan issue is, or the exit planning issue can be part of the succession plan issue, can be to have your family members continue it, to have your employees continue it, to have an investor come out and purchase it and continue it, or to just sell it or shut it down. I mean, there are so many options available to you. But of course, most entrepreneurs at the small and medium-sized business level don't think about all of those options, do they, in your experience?
No, they don't. One of the things I learned at this event last night, which was sponsored by the Exit Planning Institute, is exit planning is not an event, it's a process. And too many business owners decide on Thursday they're going to retire on Friday. and they give no thought to what processes they need to put in place to maximize the value of that business before they sell it. Many experts I've learned will say, to maximize the value of your business, we need 5 years. You've got to give us 5 years notice so that we can, put all the proper processes in place and get you the maximum value for your business.
And why 5 years? Is it because a 5-year mark is a good marker for them to look at the cash flow and work on the cash flow and increase the positive cash flow, to work on the income statement, to work on the balance sheet?
All of it.
Yes.
Including solidifying relationships with key customers. Part of a business valuation could be a large company may be dependent on 1 or 2 significant customers. Well, if the owner sells and suddenly disappears, there's a likelihood that one of those customers did business with that company because of the relationship they had with the owner.
Of course.
So part of that long-term exit planning is solidifying those relationships, making sure that you're doing the things today to enhance those relationships, strengthen those relationships, making sure that you're not extending credit for too long based on friendship, but that you're treating your business as a business and operating it efficiently.
So, looking at those issues, the issue of the business is it. I don't need any other asset. I don't need to have any other savings. I don't need to think about exit planning because when that kind of time comes, I'll think about it. There's no need to think about it now. Mm-hmm. And the diversification. I don't need to diversify any of the assets, even within the business. It's good enough as it is. There's no risk analysis being done. Mm-hmm. You've over your career, you've seen all of these issues pop up with the small and medium-sized businesses you've worked with. So what's the solution? What do these businesses need to do, and what is it that someone like you can help them do?
It takes an open mind. It takes somebody getting through to the business owner on the importance of planning. My experience, most often, it's a financial advisor. It should be the CPA, in my opinion, because they're the one that is most intimately familiar with the financials of a business. But often they're not familiar with the emotional aspect of running the business. They haven't had any non-financial conversations with their clients. The financial advisor typically has a broader spectrum of solutions they can bring to a client. And depending on the advisor, of course, it's the questions you ask. I had an experience the other day out on the beach. I was out metal detecting on the beach, ran into a couple, engaged in the conversation. It turned to business. They run a very successful business in the Orlando area, 9 outlets, and making a boatload of money. But I asked, do you have a good CPA? And she was like, oh, we hate our CPA. And I said, why? So we're paying a lot in taxes and we're not getting any advice. I said, are you doing anything about that? She said, well, we've begun to look for a new CPA, but we're not quite sure what we're looking for. That's an area that we work with a number of top-tier CPA firms. So we're able to come in and provide a referral to them. I asked about their corporate structure. Are you C Corp, LLC? How are you structured? She said, I'm not sure. I said, that's something that probably needs to be reviewed both with your legal counsel and your CPA. You guys are working too hard to not have your business properly protected and to minimize your taxes. I asked a question about their retirement planning, and she said, we've got our 401k. Isn't that enough? And so I explained to them some of the challenges, about business owners owning a 401k, and explained there were other alternatives out there that could provide a lot more value and pretty much an unlimited contribution towards your retirement. It was an interesting conversation. They were very open. They were looking for guidance. And being that I had just met this couple on the beach, I didn't want to intrude on their vacation. So twice I graciously offered, I said, I'd like to let you guys enjoy your vacation. I don't mean to hog your time. Would you like to continue this conversation at another time? And she says, we'd like to continue it now. So it made me realize I was bringing up topics that they were looking for help with. And until the conversation, really hadn't realized what somebody could do to help them. I brought up a number of issues that every business owner deals with.
Give me some examples of some of those issues.
Well, one is taxes. And in my experience, 90+% of CPAs out there, they're happy to prepare your taxes. They'll do the compliance work to keep you out of trouble. They will not talk to you about alternative tax reduction strategies that are available. And reason for that I hear is, well, we're busy. And okay, you're busy, but your clients they're paying a lot of money in taxes. Isn't your job to help them reduce those taxes? No, it's not. Our job is to keep them out of trouble. So the big one is taxes. Second one is retirement planning, which ties into the succession planning. Are you setting money aside outside of the business to provide for your retirement lifestyle? And oftentimes the answer is no, not at all. Sometimes they have an IRA or a 401k, but there are other non-qualified alternatives out there that mimic the benefits of a Roth IRA with none of the income restrictions and allow a business owner to set aside virtually an unlimited amount of money on an after-tax basis, have it grow tax deferred, and be able to access it tax-free at any age for any reason. That's been in the tax code for well over 50 years. And it amazes me when I go out and talk to business owners, most of them don't know that exists. Most advisors don't know that exists. Key employee retention is another hot button right now in the market. With the labor market that we have today, the younger generation really not wanting to work, it's very difficult as a business owner to recruit, retain, and reward key people. Money alone, hard money in your pocket, is not enough to keep employees long term. We can help a business implement a key employee retention program where you can reward each key person differently. You could say to your long-term employee, maybe you've been there 10, 20 years, we're going to bonus you X number of dollars a year into this special program we have. And if you stay with us for a specified period of time, all of that money in that plan becomes yours. Mm-hmm. You could say to somebody else, similar program, but you have to stay with us for at least an additional 5 years before that money becomes yours. For the owner himself, there's different ways of structuring that plan. Some can be tax deductible today and taxable to the employee. Some can remain on the balance sheet of the business, not tax deductible today, but deductible when it's paid out in the future. There's a lot of different ways that program can be structured. And again, I come back to the team-based model. It's having the right team members to look at that business, analyze that business, and come up with solutions for the business owner. Every business is different.
Sure. How does a small or medium-sized business find the right, first of all, how do they find someone that they can trust? How do they find the right financial planner? How do they evaluate that financial planner? And how do they choose that person?
That's a great question. The term financial planner is not a regulated term, or at least minimally regulated. Somebody I had this conversation with a business owner last year. He says, I already have a financial planner. I said, that's great. What's he done for your business? And I said, has he discussed with you your buy-sell agreement? Has he discussed with you tax saving strategies for your business? Has he discussed with you an employer-only retirement plan? So it's difficult for a business owner to know the difference. I think it's one of those, you have to do some reading as an owner. You have to educate yourself. The CPA should be part of that equation. They're not often enough, but I think it is important for the CPA to be a part of that. I also see for the little bit larger businesses, having their tax attorney involved in those kind of conversations is critical.
So instead of hopping on Google and or Safari or whatever and trying to find a financial planner, maybe first go to your CPA, maybe go to your lawyer and says, hey, do you have a referral? Do you have any idea about what I need and how to help me find one?
I do. Absolutely. Start with your trusted advisor and work from there. Unfortunately, it's going to be hit or miss. There's not a directory of advisors that are trained to work in the business market. A lot of advisors will try, but they don't know the questions to ask. They don't know the products to use.
Or they're more sales oriented than they are advice oriented, or evaluation oriented, or detail oriented. Which reminds me, one of my clients who have been really very successful in operating their business and has a lot of cash on hand asked me to speak to someone who approached them who said they were a financial advisor. So I did. I had a Zoom conversation with that person. And within 2 minutes, I realized that this person was more of a salesperson. They had no idea what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They had no idea about the issues that needed to be addressed or the elements of those issues or how to address them appropriately. What they were really good at were sales.
Yeah.
And so within another 5 minutes, I politely ended the conversation and called my client and I said, stay far away from this person because this person is trying to do whatever they can to sell you the products that they have. And quite frankly, that's not the best way for you. When you have a lot of money, you will find a lot of people who are willing to help you part ways with that money.
Last November, I got a call, didn't recognize the number, and it was a doctor in the Tri-Cities area of Washington State. And he had found my profile on LinkedIn. And he said, Mike, introduced himself. He said, Mike, I need your help. And I said, how can I help you? And he says, I'm a gynecologist. I make a lot of money. Everybody wants to sell me something. Nobody wants to help me plan. Now, I know that there are products involved in any plan. That's what provides the outcome. But nobody's ever been able to explain to me why I buy the different products. Can you help me? And I said, absolutely. So our process, I set up a call with our tax attorney. We interviewed him. He was open-minded. He was looking for help. We had him complete our detailed client questionnaire, confidential questionnaire. And that's kind of a litmus test for us. If you go to the doctor and you're having chest pain, you don't want him to just prescribe something and out the door you go. You want him to complete a complete assessment of why you're having chest pain.
Sure. They may want an x-ray.
Exactly. So we did that for this gentleman. We sent him the questionnaire. We had it back within 3 days. And he was serious. He had been a hospital physician. Almost 3 years ago now, had opened up his own women's regenerative health program out in Washington. Business was good, but he had no advice. His CPA was not giving him any help. He had an insurance agent from one of the big four mutual insurance companies who was more than happy to sell him life insurance. but he never understood what he was buying it for. Is this for protection? Is this for my retirement? Is this a place to store my working capital? What is the purpose? So we put together a comprehensive business and estate plan for him. And it's in the process of being implemented now. I want to go slow with it because I want to make sure that everything is done so he understands why. I want to take that objection that he had and take the time for him to understand why we're purchasing different products, where they fit into the plan, what do they do. One thing that surprised him was we were talking about life insurance. And it's a key component of the plan. It serves multiple different purposes in his plan. But he was like, you guys have looked at 4 different companies and 3 or 4 different products. Why? I said, no one size fits all. And based on your, facts and circumstances, we want to partner you with a product that best meets your needs.
So if I were to break that down into those first 3 steps, number 1, make sure you understand the client,
exactly,
the entrepreneur, the business.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you understand what they want. Make sure you understand what they need. That's the first step. Mm-hmm. And then the second step is educate them.
Mm-hmm.
These are the options available to you, and this is why these options are good. These are why these options are better. The pros and cons of these options.
Exactly.
And then the third step would be these are the choices available, and these are the differences between the choices, even though they may actually be relevant for the same purpose. These are the differences between them. And so it's an understanding, education, and analysis portion of the process.
Correct. And it's time consuming. And a lot of advisors, they're trained to sell 1 or 2 things. And that's all they know, especially if you work for a captive insurance company.
And it's more mechanical. It's more of this is the product, and then they have their ways of selling it, and they have their process of selling
exactly.
it. And so that's a little different. So how does someone get in contact with you if they need your help?
You can reach me at 678-895-6356, or you can visit my website, yourwealthstrategists.com.
Well, great. We will make sure that we include that information on the podcast so that people will have the ability to see that. Mike, before we leave, just looking at your background and doing a little bit of research on you, I see that something pops up quite often is avoid 6 common mistakes in your business. Tell me what those, in a concise way, tell me what those 6 are.
Well, first and foremost is have an estate plan. There's a story. I use a 1-hour presentation called Business Killers, which educates business owners on these 6 mistakes. And it presents consequences. It prevents potential solutions. And then a third-party independent consultant talks about the need for that particular type of planning. And then after each module is a risk assessment.
So what's the first mistake?
First mistake is have a succession plan, an estate plan.
It's not having a succession or estate plan.
Is the mistake.
What's
Correct.
the second one?
Not having a tax plan.
Third?
Not having a key employee retention plan.
Fourth?
Fourth one would be disability planning. If the owner becomes disabled, what happens to the business? Is there a way to, not to prevent it, but is there a method?
To keep the business going.
Exactly.
And fifth?
Fifth is going to be your, we talked about key employee retention. We talked about the estate planning. Buy-sell agreement. If you have a business partner, the industry calls a shareholder agreement a buy-sell agreement. We use a different term for it. Mm-hmm. We call it a business prenuptial. Mm-hmm. And most business owners, they establish a partnership with somebody, and off you go off to the races and you build your business. Most don't like to think about what would happen if my business owner died, became disabled, retired, or otherwise left the company.
Right. And of course, you can put that in a shareholders agreement for a corporation, organization, the operating agreement for an LLC, or partnership agreement for a partnership.
Correct.
Yes.
And the other one I most important to me is have a team. 99% of the business owners I talk to, if I ask them a question, I'll go talk to my CPA. Is your CPA the right person to be calling with that question? What if instead of the CPA, you had one designated person that you could call, screen that question, and direct it to the most appropriate professional to respond to your question?
Sure.
That's what we do.
Sort of like a concierge service.
Correct.
Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Love the stories. Love the examples. And, hopefully the viewers who are listening to this will have a better understanding of what they need to do to get their themselves and their business into financial prime. Information was very valuable, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That has been the one of the most interesting conversation I've had in the Private Corporate Counsel podcast, primarily because this is an issue that's at the core of all every single small and medium-sized business that I work with. They are so busy in the day-to-day aspects of the business that they usually don't start to think about their financial life cycle and the business financial life cycle, unfortunately, sometimes until it's too late. And so this proactive approach to it that Mike has shared with us is very important. And so I hope you find his stories and his information and his knowledge as interesting as I have. Until next time, this has been Private Corporate Counsel Podcast, and my name is Tee Persad.
Please continue to listen to our podcast to learn more. Contact us at 877-647-7887 or email us at info@pcc.law to learn more about the Private Corporate Counsel program and how we can help you and your business on your journey to success.